T-Soft shoots it, deflected right in. Pietrangelo save rebound. Stastny stopped by Pietrangelo. I don't believe that save. Neither does Peter Stastny. He can't believe the save that Pietrangelo just made on him as Frankie Sparkly. Now that maneuver there to stop and rob Peter Stastny. He should get 5 to 10 for that.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Tendy Talk. I am your host Joe, better known as Washed Up Goalie on social media. This week I talked to another emergency backup goalie when I talked to Connor Beaupre, who is a self-described career healthy scratch. But before I talk to Connor, let's take a short break. Connor, thank you for joining me today. It's great having you on as a fellow Minnesotan. Your name is one that's popped up quite a bit in locker rooms and newspapers and everything else. So thanks for joining me.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, this is I've done a few before, and it's like every time I do a podcast with somebody, and it doesn't really matter who it is, you just keep talking. It feels like you said, it could be 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or it could be 3 hours, and it always feels like it goes by so fast. It's wild. It's a good time. So
yeah, when I was thinking of having the podcast, my wife was like, "Oh, you need to keep it short to like 20 to 30 minutes." And I started laughing. I said, no. When hockey players start talking, there is no 20 to 30 minute discussion. Yeah. She's like, "Do you think people will really listen to it?" And I said, "Well, Spittin' Chicklets goes 2 to 3 hours every week, and people listen to it all the time. So I think, an hour people will listen."
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people too, they go and they're either jumping in the car and they got, a 25, 30-minute commute or a 45-minute commute, and they can do half. Like I was coaching up in Blaine, and I'd make the drive up there, and it was like, 45 minutes in rush hour, and I had an hour and a half podcast, listened to half on the way up and half on the way back, and it's done. Like,
yeah, I've gotten in the habit of I listen to my podcasts on 2 times speed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I can listen to more podcasts.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
It takes a little getting used to, and if my wife walks in and she hears it going, she's like, "Will you slow that down? It sounds like the Chipmunks or something going."
Yeah, I know. That's. I don't know if I could do it. You have to really pay attention. Like I usually like to do something, or like I'm working on whatever work or something for fun in the background, or playing Xbox or something like that.
Yeah, Paul Fletcher and Mark Parrish had a hockey podcast going for a while. They had a cool song in the beginning, and because I always listened to it on 2 times speed, like it sounded really good at 2 times speed. And then I heard it at regular speed. It's like, it's still cool, but I almost prefer it sped up. And I tweeted it to the band, and they're like, "We're going to have to give that a listen. We can see how that would work."
Do a full album in 2 times speed.
Yeah.
I did see, there was a DJ who did because they can't do, festivals and concerts and stuff like that. He did a whole set that was in half speed.
Oh.
He did it in 2 times speed. And then when they recorded like video of him doing it in this place, he had like, these bonfires and stuff around him and all that. And it was in 2 times speed. So he did everything. If the song's at 100 beats per minute, it was at 200.
Yeah.
And he DJ'd it like normal. And then when they played back the video, they cut it all in half. And so the set was like an hour long, but it was all slow motion, but it sounded normal. It was super cool. So like crazy. He's moving around and it looks like he's in slow-mo, and
that's crazy.
I mean, it's weird, music and video and how that stuff lines up, and it's cool.
So let's talk a little bit of hockey. For those that don't know, I'm not sure how they couldn't, but your dad's pretty well known in the goalie community too. He's Don Beaupre, and he's played in a few big games, played for a few teams. I think a lot of people would assume, oh, your dad played hockey. He probably wanted you to play hockey, and since he was goalie, he wanted you to play goalie. But listening to the other podcasts you've been on, that wasn't the case. He took what I think is the best approach any sports parent could take. And do you want to play? If so, okay, there you go. And because of that, not only you, but you and your sister decided to play hockey and play goalie, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you kind of hit it right on the head there. It was never I was never dragged to hockey. I was never told to get in the net. I was never signed up for anything I didn't want to do. I mean, even when I was a little kid, I mean, I definitely always wanted to play, and of course every 4 or 5, 6-year-old wants to go play. They got the mini sticks in the basement and all that stuff. And yeah, some kids gravitate towards it more than others. And most parents are gonna have their kid try a little bit of everything. So, but for me, it was always hockey. I mean, it was
Yep.
never anything else. I mean, I played some baseball growing up, but in the middle of the baseball season, I'd want to go to our summer hockey tryouts and stuff like that. It's like, all right, now I'm excited to go back and do that again. So, yeah,
Yep.
it was never like that. And I think as I got older and, you got to take it a little bit more seriously with, weightlifting in the summer and all that stuff too. My dad was like, I'm not going to drag you to the gym and make you go do that stuff. But if you want to get better and you want to be, the best goalie at your
Mm-hmm.
level, you got to go work out and you got to go, do more. You can't just play games all the time. You got to
Right.
go to more skill stuff and
Yeah.
work on those things off the ice and all that stuff too. So I think that was super important. And it was never ever, he was always like, you know what, if you want to do it, I can show you how I did it and,
Yep.
show you the way. But yeah, never ever was forced.
It's interesting you bring up the off-season weightlifting because your dad kind of spanned two eras of
Mm,
hockey. And one of those was the era where training camp is when they started lifting weights and getting in shape for the
hmm
season. Whereas at the end of his career, the expectation was you do that in the off season, you come to training camp ready to play. So it's interesting that he had that thought with you because some guys I've talked to, they're like, oh, I miss those days when we could just show up, and that's when we started getting in shape.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's why everybody used to think, training camp was hell because it was when you actually had to get back in shape. But
Yeah,
I mean, after his first year with the North Stars, he came back and he played, summer would be like the equivalent of the Legion ball here, with
yep,
his buddy summer baseball with his friends. And he just finished his first year in the NHL and they went to the cup. Like
yeah,
it's came back and played and then he, worked. I mean, he grew up working for a landscaping company and he was like, I mean, I was outside and I was lifting stones and
right.
stuff like that too. So you're getting a workout and you're staying in shape, but it wasn't like, we're going to go do plyo in the gym today. And then we've got a yoga session and then we got like, weights and all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, I was talking to Maria Mountain last week
Mhm.
about the evolution of training for goaltenders. And for the longest time, we were an afterthought.
Mm.
And for so long, people thought, well, we should work out just like the forwards and the defense. And we've learned since probably not. We need to do more of the plyo and circuit training and stuff like that. And it's crazy to think on how times have changed.
Yeah, definitely. I think that there's a lot more. I think you can do a lot of the stuff that forwards and stuff do. I think
Hmm.
it's a lot of just general all around
Right.
and general weightlifting never
Yeah.
hurts you. It's just
Yeah.
being strong everywhere.
We don't
Uh,
want to bulk up like PK Subban, though.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but I think I found some of my most significant improvement is when I did a session that was goalie weightlifting
Hmm.
only.
Yeah.
We did a lot more plyo, we did a lot more core strength stuff, but
Hmm.
and balance and stuff like that too. That I mean, I barely ever bench press once I really started learning how to lift.
Right.
I do that very rarely, and the only time I did it, I think, is before I went to a training camp where I knew I was going to get tested for it. Like
I,
I did it for like 3 weeks before, and still really wasn't putting up the bar too many times. So,
I forget who I was talking to. This was years ago, and I was in the weight room, and they said, "Why are you spending so much time on your arms?" And I said,
yeah.
"Well, because that's what our program says to do." And he said, "How many pucks do you save with the brute strength of your arms?
hmm
It's all in the legs and the core when you're a
hmm
goalie." And it was like, well, yeah, and I still worked on the arms because you don't want to look like the guy with the giant legs and
Yeah. hmm
skinny arms. Girls get the girls. But it was kind of a aha moment of, yeah, I don't need to max out and be stuck in the shower trying to get those arms up to wash your hair because they're noodles. But yeah, that was one of those times. Now I want to back up a little bit because we were talking about you know wanting to go to the rink and not being forced to go to the rink. And
mm
you coach at the high school level now, and we see it a lot with kids these days where
Oh
they
yeah.
feel like they have to specialize as a squirt. They have to
hmm
pick that sport, and they have to, 365, 6 to 8 days a week, skill sessions, all this other stuff. Um, and we kind of had a similar upbringing in the sport where it was, do you want to go? Okay. Do you want to get better? Okay, this is what you have to do. I'm not forcing you to do it. You need to make the decision. As a coach, are you seeing the benefits of those kids specializing, or are you seeing the burnout? Because I think that's what I've seen a lot, is the burnout by the time they get to the high school level, and they almost lose the love of the game at that point.
Yeah, I think we see a little bit of both. I mean, coaching at Holy Angels,
Mm-hmm.
we've got a lot of kids who, see an opportunity to go there, or maybe they're overshadowed at like an Edina or a Minnetonka, or maybe they want to step it up from, another smaller school that maybe the
Mm-hmm.
programs aren't as strong. And I'm not talking just hockey either. Like, I mean, our soccer team won state last
Yeah.
year. We won since I've been at the school. We won a football state
Yep.
championship.
Larry
Obviously those guys
Fitzgerald
are
went there.
exactly. You know what? Uh, the school is the athletics there are fantastic, and the
Mm-hmm.
school is great. The kids love it, and we've got a ton of multi-sport athletes, on our team. It's fun because we get to go watch, lacrosse and
Yeah.
hockey and baseball and know all these kids and stuff like that too. And I think what we've seen is even from, just all three sport athletes, two sport athletes, they're always really hungry when they come back to the rink.
Yep.
And even if, soccer is their main focus, they come to the rink hungry and they're like, I want to win this year. What do I need to do to get better
Yep.
in hockey? And we get the conversation all the time from the kids too, and kind of going along the same lines as, I think I'm just going to play hockey this year, or I think I'm just going to play soccer. And it's like, you don't have to pick right now. You can do
Yep.
both. And it may feel like you're, falling behind, but, make sure when you show up to play soccer, or you show up to play baseball, or you show up to play hockey or football or whatever it is, that you're going 100% there.
Yep.
If you're thinking about being somewhere else during that time, then you got to kind of reassess what you're doing. But you can be invested in all. I mean, we've had a lot of sets of twins actually at Holy Angels, but two kids we had our first year were incredible football players, lacrosse players, and hockey players. And it was like they were so good at all three. I don't know how they ever picked what they did, and they ended up going to college. And one of them does rowing, and the other one's not really in sports anymore. I think he's playing club something lacrosse or something like that. But I mean, and they still had a blast all those years. They were contributors on the ice, on the field, everywhere, So I think there's a lot of pressure to specialize to
Mm-hmm.
keep up with people.
Absolutely.
But I think if you're giving it everything you got and being smart about it, you can,
Well,
do
and
it.
I think the other thing too is these youth associations put so much pressure on kids, and
Mhm.
they almost feel like, well, if I'm not doing these off-season things, I have no shot of making the
Mhm.
team next year. And that's always bugged me. Of when I've heard coaches tell kids, well, if you don't do this off-season, travel program, you're not going to make the team next year. Well,
Yeah, I think it stacks up. There's a lot of coaches who
yeah.
want you there and want
Oh,
you, and it's
absolutely.
kind of a check of commitment level too. So,
Yeah, and for me, when I was coaching, I coached at the high school level for a couple of years after college, and like you said, those multi-sport athletes, they came to the rink with a greater passion,
mhm.
because it's almost like they get to experience other things, and it pulls them away from the rink, and they rediscover that love when they come
Mhm.
back each fall. And we always encouraged it. And honestly, there were a few hockey only players, but they were like you and I. They just loved the game. They made
Mhm.
the decision. But the other ones that they just felt like they had to specialize,
Yeah.
we had to get them pumped up for games.
Mhm.
And one of my other coaches I coached with, he played minor league hockey and everything. And we were looking at each other before our big rivalry game, looking at each other going, why do we have to get these kids pumped up for a game?
Yeah.
Like, where is that passion missing? But those multi-sport athletes, they're like, let's go. I'm ready to go through a wall to beat these guys.
Yeah,
And
they want to win all around. Doesn't matter what the sport is, they want to win. So
yep. Yeah.
that's a
And
big part of it for sure.
I remember our head coach at the time, he said, we're going to have the summer training, we're going to have the fall training, but if you're playing another sport,
Mhm.
that comes first.
Yeah, and that's what we
That,
do too, especially with in-season stuff is,
right.
you're in that season, be in that season and do your best. And again, like we've heard stories of coaches, like football coaches come in and they'll talk to us as hockey coaches and be like, how is he on the ice? Is he a good
Yep.
teammate? Is he a
Oh, yeah.
leader? That stuff carries over all sports, all those,
Yeah.
intangible things that, you don't measure in points and there's no stats for, like that carries over, and that's where you learn it and you practice it in all these
Yep.
other sports too, because it's different scenarios and different situations. And, there are a lot of team games, even individual stuff too. I think a lot of our goalies in the past have played tennis or golf and stuff like that too. And I think for a goalie, that's kind of the mentality, is that you're kind of on your own, but you're still part
Yeah.
of a team, and it's still, a different kind of pressure.
Yeah.
So,
It's funny when I've gone into job interviews because I'm an analyst. So a lot of teams, I'm on a marketing team, but I'm left alone because I'm an analyst. My wife says I'm a lot like Chandler Bing. Everybody knows I have a job. They just don't know what I do.
yeah.
Um, and they're like, are you okay working, kind of on your own, but still part of the team? And I chuckle.
Hmm.
I'm like, well, I'm a goalie. That's what I do. And they're like,
Exactly. Yeah.
oh, okay. There you go. Um, yeah, so I've kind of gone down a rabbit hole, so I got to get myself back to where my notes were here. So, of all the goalies I've talked to, you've got a little bit of a different upbringing in that your dad did play in the NHL,
Hmm.
and not only that, but he bounced around from a couple different cities because he was in demand. Uh, and you got to
Yeah.
spend some time in some cool cities like Washington D.C. Still on my bucket list. I can't wait to
Hmm.
get there. Um, Ottawa, Ottawa, of course.
Hmm.
What was it like growing up with a dad that was high profile like that, and going to these different cities? At one point it's like, comes home. All right, we're moving. Where are we moving to? Uh,
Well, I was born when he was playing for the Caps
yeah.
in DC. So back in the day, they practiced kind of in between DC and Annapolis. So
Hmm.
my family lived out. Our first house was in Annapolis, and so I was born there, and we only ended up living there for like another year or two after I was born, and then we moved to Ottawa and then Toronto. And by the time I was really like 4 or 5 and really playing, he was done. So his last year was in Toronto, where he only kind of started the year there, and then went down to St. John and was like, this is it. I mean, and it was
Yeah.
his 17th year too. I mean, he was
Yeah.
37, and he's playing. And I wouldn't say you can see this writing on the wall, because I think they went pretty deep in the playoffs that year in the minors and stuff like that, and he was playing well. But it's kind of one of those things where now you're deciding, you got family, you got kids, all that stuff too, that
Yeah.
you know maybe it's time to call it quits and move on to the next thing. And so that's what he kind of did. But so I don't really remember living in a lot of these places. I've seen a lot of pictures and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
But I think definitely after, especially living in Minnesota, and and when he had played here too, a lot of people knew who he was. And so coming up playing, there was always kind of a little bit of a pressure like that, I think too, that, instantly, oh, your dad played, like, you got to be good. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, it's in your blood, like it could be,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, not
it's
everybody's a Fernando Tatis Jr. where they come up and they're better than their dad,
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
even Prince Fielder.
Mhm.
Very few athletes wind up being better than their dads. It's interesting that he decided to come back and settle in Minnesota because he's not from here. What was the decision to come back
So
to Minnesota?
my mom's from
Yeah.
Bloomington. So they had met here in his last couple of years with the North Stars, because he got traded in 87, 88. And then I think they had met then, and then he had moved out to Washington and would come back in the summers. And so he was living out with a teammate, because he was kind of, when he got traded, he was kind of in the minors, and then he came into Washington and they had like 2 or 3 goalies and somebody was hurt. And so he was kind of playing for Baltimore Skipjacks, for the minor league team then. So he was playing there, and he was living with Al May, actually, who was also with Baltimore then. And then they both ended up coming up together eventually. But so then when I was born, they had gotten the house, or they had already had a house in Annapolis. I was born, and then they finally, decided that, hey, let's live in Minnesota in the end. So I don't know if that was more my mom's decision, and getting to know her more now, it probably was. But
It's funny. A lot of hockey players I've talked to who've bounced around but met their wife in one of their cities.
Mhm.
I would say 95% of the time they wind up living in the city of the wife when the playing days are over. I mean, Corey Crawford is a perfect example. He met his wife in Chicago, and it sure sounds like that's where they're going to wind up when his playing days are over.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of guys, for sure. I mean, a lot of guys from that North Stars team still live around here too, for sure. I mean, we see a lot of them, pretty regularly through the alumni and events and stuff like that.
So that had to have been kind of neat growing up as a kid, and you probably didn't even realize how special it would be.
Definitely
compared to other kids of, hey, all these guys are coming to the house. Side note, I worked with an uncle of yours for a while, Joe Janis.
Yep.
And he was telling the story. He's like, oh, I wish I could have called you this weekend and had you over to my brother-in-law's house. And he just started naming the goalies that were there. And it's like, but for you, that's just, a Saturday evening with dad, right?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that like growing up, you're more used to. And I think a lot of people, I just kind of, I guess I don't have that like starstruck factor a little bit with
Right.
it. And I definitely do. Like, I definitely understand. Like, I've met some super, I mean, I remember I met like Mike Richter, and like that was
Hmm.
one of the guys when I was young. Like, that's
Yeah.
one of the things that
I
stuck with
loved watching Richter play.
and like Hashik and all those guys too. And like, like definitely don't take for granted like the opportunity to meet those
Hmm.
guys. But it's a little like, I don't know. I guess I've kind of gotten used to it a little bit. I guess I don't want to say that, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like
I,
it is, you are a little used to it.
I know what you mean, because when I was playing college hockey, one of my teammates was Brian Trottier Jr.
Hmm.
And I'll never forget, it was junior year, I went into the coach's office during tryouts, and I said, and Trotchier's sitting there on the couch, and I looked at the coach, is like, I'm going to have to miss this weekend's on ice. And the
Hmm.
coach goes, well, why? And I said, well, my cousin's getting married, and mom and dad said I have to be there. The wedding's in Chicago. And he goes, okay, that's an okay excuse. And Trotch is sitting there. He goes, yeah, I'm going to have to miss this weekend's on ice too. And the coach looks at him. He's like, what, do you have a wedding to attend to? And he's like, no, the Islanders want to retire my dad's number or something. And they said I have to be there. And we're like, ooh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Big, I don't know if you should be there for that one, but it was just so funny
Yeah.
that he was so nonchalant about this stuff. And he talked about when he was a kid and living in Pittsburgh, and Yager was an 18-year-old rookie,
Hmm.
and Trotch Jr. was closer in age to Yager than the rest of his teammates. But he said, his dad would bring Yager over after practice to play NHL 94. And
Oh,
of course, Yager had to be the Penguins every time so he could be himself. And
yeah. Well, that's hilarious too, because like to think that he was, closer to the kids' age, and
yeah,
now like all the guys at the end of Yager's career he was playing with are closer to like a lot of those guys' dad's age. Like
yeah.
that's fascinating.
But it was just funny. Some of these stories he would start telling, and it's like, stop for a minute and think about what you're saying to the rest of us, because we
Hmm.
would just like to be in the room, not even be.
Yeah.
But as at the end of the day, they're just people.
Hmm.
They just have some different stories, and I've been fortunate enough to skate with different people and meet different celebrities, and I don't think I've really been awestruck once I realized they're just people. It's fun to just get to know them and hear their story.
Yeah, I think a lot of it too is like, and maybe it's just, learning socially over time, but, obviously they get asked about hockey all the time, but
Yeah.
really when guys get into it and like really talk to you is when you ask them other things, non-hockey related. And I think I've just started kind of doing that,
Yep.
and everything else comes from there. It doesn't matter really who you're talking to. I mean, you can ask somebody about their job, but do they really
Hmm.
want to talk about their job all the time? And
Yeah.
stuff comes out eventually. But I mean, that's like, you just talk to them as a person, and that's how you get to know them as a person instead of,
Yeah. I love that you said that, because that's part of the idea behind this podcast is, yeah, I want to talk hockey. I want to
Mhm.
talk goaltending with people. But the other part of it is I want to find out what makes goalies tick away from the rink.
Mhm.
I talked to Justin Goldman from the Goalie Guild, which
Mhm.
for him, mental health within the goalie community is what
Definitely.
makes him tick. There's a perfect example there. So before we transition into talking that, I want to mention the elephant in the room, and that you are the Wild's emergency backup
Mhm.
goaltender. I don't think it's a secret how maybe you landed that gig. You have a connection or two with the Wild
Yeah.
somehow.
Mhm. Yeah.
It was through the Stadium series, as I've listened to the other
Yep.
podcasts and read the different stories that, just skating with some of the guys that they approached you. But you're not the only EBUG for the Wild.
No. Mhm.
You're just maybe we'll say the face of the Wild EBUGs.
Yeah, I'm one of two kind of main guys that do it. So
Yeah.
Tino Vasquez is the other guy who does it, and he'd been doing it like long before I had, and he had, God, did he do a Players Tribune article or something like that? He did an
Yeah.
article and wrote about it when he had to jump in for the Rangers, and that was like before they had to be in the rink. Like when I started, they really created kind of the mandate of
Yep.
that guy needs to be in the building,
Yeah.
because when Tino did it, he was at his house, and a lot of like being an EBUG, like a part of that is you have to have, a job that can accommodate that,
Right.
and, and flexibility and stuff like that. Um, but Tino lives super close to the rink. So he like 5 minutes. So it was easy for them to, hey, we need a guy. Can you drive over here? And he can watch the game at home. They're just like,
Yeah.
hey, pay attention to the game and be ready if you need to have your bag packed. And so otherwise he could just sit at home and shorts and a t-shirt and do
Yeah.
whatever. But he was like, I had to go throw the suit on really quick, get my bag, jump in the car, get to the rink, and then throw my gear on. So, I mean, that's how it used to be, but I started right then. But I mean, it is a lot about flexibility and stuff like that too. I mean, I know, man, probably 25 or 30 guys who do it,
Yep.
including, Bones, who you interviewed before, and
Yeah.
all that stuff too. And a lot of guys have flexible positions. Like he works for Delta, I'm pretty sure, or he works for
Southwest Airlines.
Southwest.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's, different hours and stuff like that where he can make that work. And for me,
Yep.
I do, digital marketing consulting. So I, create my own schedule and I've got flexibility. You know, Bob Mason, the old goalie coach, would text me at, 8:30, be like, hey, Doobie's taking the day off, or, Al's taking the day off. Can you come in and jump into practice at 10? And it's like, all right, great. Throw my bag in the car at 9 and zip over to St. Paul and,
Yep.
in 30 minutes and throw my gear on right when I get there and hop on the ice. So, so you kind of need that flexibility. And I think that's something that's pretty consistent that I've seen alongside of a lot of other EBUGs. I know Scott Foster was like an accountant and stuff like that too,
Yeah.
which is a good job, but I think they had like 4 or 5 rotating guys, and
Yep.
they don't have a lot of game commitments. Whereas like Tino and I split the games right in half.
Mhm.
So we're each going to do at least 20 during the year, kind of depending on what we
Yeah.
got.
And it sounds like the Wild are one of the teams that do rely on the
Mhm.
EBUGs a little more for those practice situations, where from what I've read, not every team does. Which I think that is kind of cool too, because that keeps you guys sharp too.
Mhm.
For I still skate beer league, and just being able to practice, I miss that.
Yeah.
And to practice those situational awareness of the speed of the NHL
Mhm.
game. That's not something you're going to be able to do in your beer league game. So the fact that they bring you in is good.
Yeah. I think that it's tough to say if they lean on their emergency goalies more. I mean, they definitely give us a shot. That's for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, they wouldn't go out there, or they'd try not to unless it was just a couple guys without a goalie or with
Right.
only one goalie.
Yeah.
I mean, if they know we're available and we're willing to do it, so they're not afraid to give us a call if they need a guy, which
Yeah.
is good. I mean, I've skated with other teams in practice too, and that's kind of like, I know Mike McKenna pretty well now too,
Yeah.
through online stuff. But Ottawa needed a goalie to fill in for Craig Anderson because they were playing a few, and he, like, I guess rarely practices when they do long road trips and stuff like that. So
It's the beauty of being a vet. You can
yeah,
say,
yeah,
nah,
exactly.
I know my body.
Yeah, exactly. So I was sitting next to Mike McKenna in the locker room, and he's a great guy, and we were talking and stuff like that too. But just practice with them, and he was like, "Yeah, I've met a bunch of you guys, on the road, because that's usually how it goes." But
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's important too that you look at like all the situations and stuff, that your emergency goalie isn't just the guy walking off the street like it sounds like. I
Right.
mean, at least be prepared for the sake of your team for one, but also the other team who's coming in. If they've
Yep.
got no experience and they come into a game, they've never seen an NHL shot,
Right.
that's where you're going to run into some problems. And the question of, okay, are you providing a quality enough goalie to come in and do this? But I feel like, I think the first time I sat in the press box, like the very first night I did, I got a call that morning to fill in for Tino, who couldn't make it. And I was so nervous. And now it's like I go there and it just, feels like another day.
Yeah.
So it's cool like that. And I don't think I'm as nervous about, being on the ice isn't really the fear for me. You battle
Right.
in practice, and I'm not
Yeah.
going to say I stop everything or it feels like it used
No.
to feel in practice, but
You feel like you
it
fit
feels more
in.
comfortable. Exactly.
And what I love about hockey players is it doesn't matter your skill level. When you're in the locker room, you're just one of the
Mhm.
guys.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There was one summer I was skating with, it was Billy Zito's group in Chicago of skaters. And I was playing rat hockey at Johnny's Ice House the
Mhm.
hour after them. And they came up to me afterwards going, "Hey, we need a goalie tomorrow. You want to skate?" I was like,
Mhm.
"Yeah." Well, then
Oh,
I
yeah.
wound up skating with them the rest of the summer. That was back when Billy was still a player agent.
Mhm.
And, in that locker room, we had former Stanley Cup winners. We had high paid, NHLers, but
Mhm.
I was just one of those guys.
Yeah, and you
It,
show up and you put your gear on, and hey, you're
yeah,
on the ice too. So
and I so remember the day one of the players was complaining about the $15 it was to skate every day. Going, God, can you believe? Because it was the one day Billy Zito wasn't at the practice, and he's, you know, and the guy's going, can you believe that he's charging us $15 a day for this? And I'm working in, you know, I'm this college kid paying my own way. I'm like, who charges goalies, by the way, for that kind of stuff? And
yeah,
and I'm sitting next to him, and I just go, you got to be shitting me. And at that, the whole locker room goes quiet. And he's like, well, what do you mean? I said, did I read in the newspaper this morning you signed a new 2-year, $5 million contract? Yeah. Is that your brand new Hummer sitting out in front of the rink? Yeah. I said, I'm working an unpaid internship. You don't hear me bitching, do you? And he just kind of hangs his head and taps my pads, and he goes, I got you covered today. But, you know, to his credit, he made sure the rest of the summer somebody covered my fee every
That's
day.
awesome.
But it was just funny because in the locker room, it didn't matter that I was this, you know, Division III JV backup giving them crap. It was just, we were a couple of hockey players in the locker room giving each other shit.
Yeah, it's just a great equalizer. You get on the ice and then you see what happens. But you know what?
Yeah.
Hey, everybody's still out there. So I mean, I think it's the same way in, you know, even men's league you play in too. It doesn't matter where you played or whatever too. Hey, we're playing in the same league on the same sheet of ice. So
yeah, all roads
here
lead
if you
to
want
the
to talk, but
all roads lead to the beer league, right?
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So I read the Great City Pages article about you, and what I liked about it was in there it was talking about prepping for the stadium series. You know, as you were a kid, your dad gave you pointers. For the stadium series, did you have to maybe give your dad some pointers like, hey, this is how the game's played today?
Yep. Yeah, it was cool. It was like a little bit yeah, like you said, it was just roles reversed a little bit too, I think. So he played when I was in high school, he played out in Pittsburgh for the Washington Pittsburgh alumni game that they did out at was it Heinz Field?
Yeah.
Heinz Field. So he played in that one, and he went out and he skated a little bit, like maybe a couple weeks before. He borrowed some gear from a place, so stuff that wasn't his own except for his mask.
Yeah.
You know, and went out there and played, and I think it ended up being like 5-5. And he goes, you know what? I felt so uncomfortable. It always felt like I was going to get hurt. You know, he was like, it really wasn't fun. And then this other game rolled around, and you know, another funny side story to that is the North Stars game rolled around, and he was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do it. Like, you know, I'm getting older, all this stuff. And then he got a text from Joe Malash who goes, hey, I'm playing in that game. I'm hopping in that. Are you going to play too? And he was like, oh, no, because Gilles is 10 years older than he is. And he's like, there's no way Gilles can play and I can complain about not playing.
Yeah.
So
I actually have a sticker of his mask on my water bottle here.
Oh, yeah, I know. And I can't believe he wore that in the game. Unbelievable.
Oh, that was awesome.
So cool. So once my dad committed to that, he was like, you know what, it's time I want to really get ready to do this. And, you know,
if I'm going to do it
and get on the ice. Yeah, and feel good out there. And I mean, again, it's second nature for him being a pro hockey player for so long. But I mean, he was doing yoga like 3 times a week. He was working out with a trainer like he was. You know, him and I were getting on the ice, you know, maybe once, twice a week, especially more towards, you know, the game.
Yeah.
And we did some sessions. You can actually look it up on YouTube. There's some video that we took because he wanted to watch it back after.
Yeah.
He's like, we didn't really do this back in the day. So so we set the GoPro camera and watched it. We just did some drills, and he was like getting used to the gear. So CCM got him some gear, the old North Stars trainers.
Yeah, they look great.
And and again, another funny side story with Gilles is that my dad actually asked him, hey, are you interested? You know, what do you want? And he goes, oh, yeah, that sounds great. Just give me whatever you're getting. Like, no worry about specs or size or anything. Yeah, just give me what you got.
Yeah.
Whatever. So, and now it's like two totally different stories. I mean, Gilles said he skated like once or twice. He borrowed my chest protector, like breezers and all that stuff. He literally brought skates and like a cup, I think, because in his mask that he got made before the game. So, yeah, I think my dad really put in the work for that game, and it paid off. I mean, I thought he played great, and he said he felt great in there and all that stuff too. So it was fun to watch.
Yeah, I remember watching that game. I grew up in Chicago, so I'm a Hawks fan. And I actually went to Murray Bannerman's Learn to Skate as a kid. And I remember being a squirt out on the ice, seeing this former Blackhawk goalie, thinking, God, one day I want to be as good as him. And I was watching that Stadium Series game as a beer leaguer going, you know what? I think I'm better than Murray Bannerman these days. You know, it
Oh
was like
man.
funny how it came full circle. Now, your dad, uh, toward the end of his career, he was playing in an era when I was playing. So the equipment is actually what I still wear, as you've probably seen on my Instagram
Yeah,
account.
I
I've got
actually
some.
saw it last night. I was going to ask you how'd the game go.
Yeah, we won 5-4.
There you
By
go.
my count, I made about 35 saves.
Nice.
God, it felt really good. But it was funny when the refs came out, because I played a few pickup games since COVID, but this was the
Mhm.
first real game. So the refs came out, and I looked at the one. And I said, I've really missed your kind. And he started laughing, and but there were a lot more smiles from both sides of the benches. Just
Yeah. Mhm.
guys. It was a sloppy game. I'll say that, because there was a lot of guys where this was their first skate since everything went down.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Um,
and that's like 6 or 7 months for a lot of guys. I mean, I've only been on the ice a handful of times, and I skate
yeah,
out a little bit too and doing that. But I've only been in the net, God, just a few times skating with some pro guys before they went back to camp, or when
yeah,
camp opened up, I guess. And it was like that was the first time I had skated in 3 months, and I was like, all right, I can't promise you I'm going to be any good because it's been about 3 months since I put the gear on. But
yeah,
you go
but
out there and it just comes right back to you, and it feels good. Then
yeah.
the the good feeling of being back out in your gear again and stopping a few pucks just overweighs,
Oh God, yeah.
the sloppiness you may feel, or, you let in a soft one or something like that. It just feels good to be back out there. So,
Well, I talked to Justin Goldman, and he and I talked about how we didn't realize how much we needed that first skate until we got out
mhm,
there, and just yeah, we talk about how good it physically feels, but just mentally what it did for us.
yeah.
I was talking to somebody else, and they said that first skate, it was like being on a 3-day coffee high.
Yeah.
It was like, that's what it felt like. That first skate back, I remember waking up the next morning still smiling.
Yeah.
It,
Hmm.
it was good for me. But getting back to the question was, I've got old equipment. My stuff's 20 years old.
Hmm.
And one of the reasons I haven't got new equipment is I'm just cheap. But at this point, the other apprehension I have is the technology and the equipment has
Hmm.
changed a lot. I mean, some goalies don't even have leather straps on their pads anymore,
Hmm.
which we saw can be an issue.
Yeah.
In fact,
Zaleski the other night, I was just about to say,
yeah, in
yeah, that
fact,
was a glaring one.
I texted Mike, or not texted, I tweeted Mike McKenna with a picture of all my straps on the back of my pads
Hmm.
before the game, saying, yeah, I won't have any pads falling off tonight.
Yeah. Not
Uh,
happening to me.
but, so your dad, he's wearing new modern equipment for that
Hmm.
Stadium Series game. That every goalie I've talked to that's moved from the older equipment like me and your dad wore
Hmm.
to the new stuff, they say there's an adjustment. How did he handle that adjustment, and how did he like it?
So that was a part of it. Once we got the green light from CCM to do that, we kind of worked on specs for a while. And I used to work in at Total Hockey and all those
Yeah,
places too, and I goal crease helping size and stuff like that too. And I'm like gear nerd for sure,
yeah,
like 100%, like
most
love the gear,
goalies
love
are.
all that stuff. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we spent a lot of time. I mean, it was like a couple 4 or 5 brainstorming sessions of like, all right, here's what we want, all down to the angle of the glove and stiffness of the pads. And you know pads before and stuff you wear don't have a thigh rise on them. There's no.
Right.
So that's one of the things we try not to include, and they added, you got to do at least 1 inch on there.
Yeah.
So we've got that. We also decided he used to wear 33 was the size of his
Yeah.
pads, which also was his number 2. But so he used to always wear that size, but we went a size down, and we said, you know what, they're going to be more stiff. Let's keep them smaller. It's got the softest boot in there. It's got double brakes, internal, external, like the softest we can get them. We almost played around with the idea for a while, getting, an intermediate build 32 pad, because that's as
Mhm.
big as they go. I don't know
Yeah.
if that's now, but it was then. And we go, maybe we can get the soft foams in here, and it's going to feel more comfortable, like what you wore. And I mean, we broke them in, and we had a pool table at our old house, and we used to squish them underneath the pool table and all that stuff. I mean, I've heard all the stories of guys running them over with their
Yeah.
car and like just to break in the foams. And so we did all that stuff before. And so we made sure that, all that stuff, we found a way to get all 3 glove breaks in there. And so at goal crease, they had all three. And so we were able to shoot, and he was being like, all right, I like this one, and this one.
Yeah.
And he loved catching with the 590, which is like the standard CCM break one. But he couldn't handle the puck with it. He wanted to be able to shoot the puck and do that stuff too. So we went to the 600, which is like the best. And I'm wearing this stuff now, and like handling such a huge part of my game, and it makes it so easy. So, I mean, it's just those little things and considerations. And I think what a lot of people do, and I guess when you don't live in Minnesota and there's not as much access to it, it's tougher to do that. But I'd like highly recommend, if you can try gear or at least put it on and do stuff like that, it can really change your game and make you feel a lot more comfortable in net. So I think he found the pads were really stiff from the get-go, but the more he got used to them, he goes, this is great. The rebounds kick away. It's consistent. The glove feels solid. My hands aren't stinging, like all those little things too. So I think he says all the time, he goes, I don't know how you ever complain about what you got on with what I had to wear and all that stuff too. So
I was joking. I was talking to somebody the other day about my first set of association goalie equipment, because it was actually another baseball dad. My son's a baseball player.
Mm-hmm.
He likes hockey, but he just likes to skate on the pond, and I'm cool with that.
Mm-hmm.
But we had fall baseball starting up, and he said he went and picked up the catcher's gear, and he was impressed at the quality of it, because it's usually 10 years old. And I started laughing. I said, well, I was playing youth hockey. I started in the early 90s, and our stuff was from the 70s, brown deer hair filled pads. He said my first chest protector was a 2-piece where, the belly part looked like a baseball chest protector.
Yeah, the chest and arms.
Then it had the arm piece separate, and it was about, maybe a 16th of an inch thick. And then I look at the stuff I have now, even though it's 20 years old now, but it's just light years ahead of, what your dad wore growing up. And even in the NHL, it's crazy. I remember at one practice in high school, one of my teammates said, hey, what if goalies still didn't wear masks? What would you think of that? And I looked at him and said, I'd be a forward.
Yeah, exactly. I can't even imagine how those guys did it. I mean, even Jill going out there just in that game. I mean, when I skate out, I wear a cage. Like, something dumb's going to happen. You're going to get hit in the face. It's like not worth losing teeth and eyes over and stuff like that too. And it makes me think of lacrosse goalies too. Like, you got to have such high adrenaline. That field lacrosse guys who don't wear any other gear besides the chest thing, like, that's just pure adrenaline. I'm sure that's what those guys did. It's whoever could, get up and be the most confident and be willing to step in front of their teammates. And it's kind of the same mentality as with goalies now, get in front of pucks and do whatever it takes. I mean, you would never see a goalie at a high level if they lost their mask or, lost their glove in the middle of a scramble, not try and make the save.
Right. Well, look, Hunter Miska made the barehanded save.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I remember watching that over and over again, being like, God, how could he ever do that? And then I got in a game and you lose a piece and you're just like, all right, what can I do can I put my arm over there? Can I put my leg over there? Do I just got to put my hand out? Like, whatever it is, you just don't even think about it in the moment.
Yeah. Well, in Goal Magazine, their podcast, they talk about Marc-Andre Fleury and how he's so good on the desperation save just because he's got it built in to never give up on a play.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he makes those incredible saves. And I think a lot of us goalies, we have that same mentality. Don't give up. Okay, I don't have a glove on. What can I do? This might hurt, but that thing's not going in the net. If I have anything to do with it, it's not going in the net. And hey, if I stop the puck, then maybe I can get the whistle to get my glove back.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's one of the biggest things, like coaching too with young kids, whether they're in mites or squirts and they're trying to learn how to play goalie.
Yep.
I mean, things we always try and teach is always jump on the puck, never give up, even if it's sliding behind you, dive, do something to get there and kind of grow that, instinct that, you're never going to give up on a play. Even if, the guy passes it and he's standing behind you, in between you and the net, find a way to get there, whether you trip him or, poke the puck away or, take him out, whatever it is, you got to do something. And I think as a goalie, you just kind of have that natural instinct, or you learn over time. That's all I know is to never give up. So
yeah, well, as coaches, we tell the forwards to keep going until you hear a whistle, and it's the same idea for the goalie.
Yeah, exactly.
So as we mentioned earlier, one of the ideas behind the podcast is to find a little bit more about the goalies away from the ice too. You mentioned you're in digital marketing. That's kind of what I do too as an analyst. So what do you do in digital marketing? I'm excited to hear about this one.
So I do a little bit of everything. So I consider it kind of consulting. It's mainly focused on small businesses, and
Mm-hmm.
my 30-second sales pitches. Basically, I'm trying to take care of the marketing work you need to get done that you don't have time to do,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not enough where you got to pay somebody full time to do it.
Right.
You have, you know, 2 hours or 5 hours or 10 hours of social media work and website work that you need done in a week. Your time is better spent, going out and meeting with your customers,
Yep.
or actually working on whatever your product is, or distributing or whatever that is. And it's probably not best spent like on Instagram or Facebook or your website.
Right.
So that's where I come in, and I can take care of that. And so basically my goal is to just take care of those things for you so you don't have to worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a lot of clients in real estate who their job is better focused, going to meet with their customers,
Yep.
looking for homes, paying attention to the market, networking, stuff like that. Their time isn't best spent sitting on Facebook or Instagram trying to get likes and do that stuff too. So basically it's coming up with plans for small businesses to run their marketing and their social media in like a
Mm-hmm.
super cost effective manner.
Makes sense to me. You're speaking one of my love
Mhm.
languages.
Yeah, exactly. It's just there's a lot of, it's a necessity now, especially with all the COVID stuff going on. There's so much stuff digitally that, that's how you're attracting customers. They're not going
Yep.
into the store. They're not doing those things right now as often as they were. So those bases got to get covered. And
Yeah.
that's what I basically try and do. So,
Well, I think it was Henry Ford that said half of my marketing budget is wasted. The other half is effective. I just don't know
mhm,
which half is which. Well, in digital, we know that which
exactly.
half is which, and that's where my role as the analyst comes in. I get
Hmm.
to look at how are people interacting with the posts, how are they interacting with the
Hmm.
website, what are they doing when they're there, if we have goal conversion set up, um, how are people maybe getting hung up before they get to the goal, how can we
Hmm.
change that? So yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, and I could probably ask you a bunch more questions, but I think those that tuned in to hear about goaltending would probably be like,
Yeah, exactly.
okay, on to the next one. So
Hmm.
when you're not on the ice, when you're not coaching, and when you're not doing the marketing, what do you do for fun? I know you got a dog. you,
Hmm. Hmm.
you got to take him for a walk, just like I had
Yeah,
to do with mine this
exactly. Yeah.
morning. What do you do away from the rink to kind of bring you that balance?
Oh man, it's funny. It doesn't feel like a whole lot. It's a lot of my weeknights. I mean, it's you work, and then men's league starting up for us again too
Yeah.
next week. So I'm playing tomorrow night or this week, playing tomorrow night and Wednesday, and then coaching this weekend, helping out a friend's program. They work with Apple Valley, Burnsville, so
Okay.
helping them out. Um,
Which group is that? Is that Devonair?
no, it's
Okay.
True Performance. So
Okay.
it's Colin Olson. He was a good friend of mine. He was my goalie partner, my first goalie partner ever, really. I was like 7 or 8.
Oh, cool.
And so he ended up playing through Apple Valley, and then he went to the development program and then played for Ohio State and Western Michigan. But he finally moved back. And so he was like, I got to get back into coaching. And his hips are
Yeah.
too bad to really play, I think, anymore. I know he's gotten them done, but I think at some point you kind of go, all right, what's it going to be? What's
Yeah.
the price you have to pay for going out there and all that? But he wanted to get back into coaching, so I'm helping him out a ton. But you know, besides that, I mean, you're always kind of thinking of the next thing, especially in high school too, where you're not looking at it a year at a time.
No.
You've got kids who are coming in as that you've talked to as seventh, eighth, ninth graders who are interested in the program, and you know have seen our success over the last couple of years and really try and get you in. So I mean, other than that, I don't know. I've had a really big obsession with like F1 lately. Been watching a lot of that racing lately. So I mean, it's just one of those things. You always kind of find something else, and it always
Yep.
seems to be sports, whatever. If it's golf or football's kicking back up again, and baseball and all that stuff too. Seeing how that's going, but yeah, it is a lot of hockey. I guess I kind of tune it out, and if everything's a little bit different. Men's league is so different than
Yeah.
coaching and
Yep.
all that stuff too. And watching the NHL and paying attention to that is so different. So um, I think it still feels like a little bit of variety, but it's just kind of always been part of my life too. I mean, as a kid, I was obsessed, like playing the video games, watching stats, all
Same
that
here.
stuff too. So
Same here. And it's been interesting as I've grown older, because as a kid, it's easy.
mhm,
You go to school, you come home, and you just watching Don Cherry videos. You're
Mm-hmm.
playing NHL on Sega and all this
Mm-hmm.
stuff. But as you grow older, and I've got a wife, I've got kids, and a job, and all of this stuff, and it's like it still comes back to hockey for me.
Yeah.
That's where the podcast came from, which my wife and kids were the ones that kind of gave me the encouragement to start it.
Mm-hmm.
So they fully embrace it, but it's still it's the men's league hockey and all these other things. And I do a lot of reading, and my two genres are either presidential memoirs and biographies or hockey.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
Yeah.
I go
And
back and forth, and then when it's turning the TV on, what am I watching? I'm watching hockey. I'd say 95% of my t-shirts are some kind of hockey shirt.
yeah, and that's the thing is it's like whether it's, reading or watching TV, like it always kind of comes back to that in some way too. I mean, I guess it's just a love of the game thing. And
Yeah.
I think especially once you get to, get past and you're playing beer league, it's like you're still playing because you love to play. And
Right.
thankfully for us, it's like really accessible here in Minnesota and you can still do it. But, if you see guys in, Florida or Carolina or, in that area too, or, out west that still play men's league, it's because they love it.
Yep.
It's not as accessible. It's probably way more expensive. I mean, I got a friend who lives in Indianapolis and they've only got like one league out there.
Yeah.
And he plays in it, and he, played high school hockey and then went on to play college baseball out there. But, he plays there and he's one of the best guys. And, maybe the bottom half of his team really isn't, they're not great players, but he goes, I love it. I get to go out and play hockey once a week. And I mean, he was bummed when he was out of it for a while and they're kicking back up. So it's just always kind of comes back in a way. So,
Yeah, it's crazy. So one of the groups I skate with for pickup hockey is they're shooting a documentary called For the Love of Puck.
mm-hmm.
And that's the whole premise is, once you get to beer league, you're playing the game because you love it.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter what level you've played at when you're on the ice, when you're in the locker room post game, you're just with a bunch of people that have the same passion for something you have a passion for. And that's what makes it great.
Yeah.
And post game, you're usually not even talking hockey. It's, all the
Yeah.
other stuff going on in life, but it's like, it's that connection with the other players that I think makes it great. I remember yesterday as everybody's coming back into the locker room, we hadn't seen each other since our last game that we
Mm-hmm.
didn't know was going to be
In
our last
January
game.
or February.
And the questions were, how are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
What's been going on in your life?
What's new? Yeah.
The one guy had just moved his, oldest off to college that
Mm-hmm.
week. And it was like, you could see how he wasn't handling it well. We'll put it that
Yeah.
way.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, and different things like that. It was just funny on how the conversation wasn't even hockey. Now, I asked a few of my guys, like, have any of you gotten any skating in, or is it going to be a really long night for me? That was my worry, is like, have you been shooting pucks in the driveway? What's been going on, guys?
Yeah, there's a tweet I retweeted, and it was like 4 months ago, and somebody had said something like, players, on beer league teams, make sure you bring an extra case of beer for your goalie because we all know your back checking hasn't gotten any better over the break.
Yeah.
And that was like 4 months ago, and I know one of my teams was giving me a little crap for it. Like, what are you saying, that we weren't good back checkers before?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying to you.
I think I may have replied to that tweet asking, my team's supposed to back check.
Yeah. Mm-hmm, yeah. No.
Like,
yeah.
Oh,
But
yeah.
that was like 4 months ago, and here we are just starting up again. It's been a long time, and like I said, like 4 months didn't help their back check then too.
No.
So I'm not looking forward to the long night tomorrow as we figure it out again.
So which beer league do you skate in?
So I play in that Metro Showcase League.
Okay.
So we've got one team that plays Tuesday nights, which is a bunch of my buddies that I played club hockey against when I went to the U,
Mhm.
and some friends from high school, stuff like that, and their buddies too. But and that team, we went undefeated before the season got canceled, and we don't have a single guy who played anywhere past club. No D3, no
Mhm.
D1, none of that stuff. But a bunch of like they were good
Yeah.
high school players and good club players, like some of the best at whether it was
Yeah.
North Dakota or the U or Duluth or whatever. And we've been playing together for 4 or 5 years in different leagues and groups and coming together. And we've got like a group of 10 guys who always show up every
Yeah.
week. And I think once you get to that point, we just got good chemistry. Our guys always play usually with the same guys. We got our 4 or 5 D-man, group, and then our forwards are 2 lines, 2.5 lines, usually stay with the same guys all the time. So that's my Tuesday night squad. And then on Wednesdays, I play with a teammate of mine from high school. Ended up going to St. Olaf. He's a year younger, but it's a bunch of his teammates from St. Olaf. So they're all D3 guys.
Okay.
And some junior guys who end up moving to Minnesota and stuff like that too. So that's like a really good high skill squad. But
Yeah.
that Wednesday night is filled with some, well, we played on Mondays, and there's like some really, really good teams. I mean, this league, you see, European guys, there's a team of all St. Thomas, former D3 guys, a team of, a bunch of D3 schools and stuff like that have a lot of guys who come back and play in this league. So it's pretty high competition. I'd say, and it's kind of a mix of, guys who never played but were good, and guys who really did play and are still looking for someone to play. And the age range is pretty big too. I mean, our youngest guys are like, 23, 24, and there's guys who are probably 35, 36 who still keep up in the league. And, you see, I think Ryan Thang plays a little bit in the league. He plays in Europe and stuff like that too when he's back. And, but yeah, I mean, it's a lot of good skill guys. And usually, and I'm sure you see it too, there's 2 or 3 guys who are probably above the level, and then maybe a handful of guys who are maybe below the level, but it all evens out in the end. And as long as it's competitive, it's fun.
So I play in the Super Rinks Adult League through the Wild, and they do a great job there. But the team I play on,
a ton of levels.
Oh yeah, and the team I'm on is in one of, if not the lowest level. And as a team, we belong there. But it was one of my college teammates that he got me on the team, and now he doesn't play anymore because he's got kids at home that are too, they're young. Our games are at bedtime. I get it, and I keep telling them, give it 2-3 years, you'll be back. Trust me. But it's one of those where there was an adjustment for me getting to adjust to that speed down there.
Definitely.
But every team seems to have that 1 or 2 guys that played Division III or played juniors
and they sneak into a lower level.
Well, I wouldn't say they sneak in. They like that team, but for the most part, those guys just play defense. And they don't put the puck on net unless their team is down and they need a few goals or it's late.
Then they turn it on a little bit. But again, you want to play with who you want to play with, your friends. And that, again, it comes back to that's the most fun part about it is, being in the locker room with your buds and, playing. And with that too, like it'd be a bummer if somebody said, all right, you can't play on this team anymore. It's like, all right, then I guess I'm not playing hockey because I don't know who else to play with. And I don't want to play with a bunch of guys I don't know. It's not fun.
Well, and that's why I've stayed on this team. I've had other teams reach out to me, be like, hey, you want to play on our team? And it's like, well, that would mean leaving this other team.
And those are your guys now.
They're like, but we're a higher division. We're a better team. It's like, absolutely you are. But that's my team, like it doesn't matter their skill level. It's the group you're with.
For sure.
Yeah. So I'm taking a look at time. I don't want to take all of your day. So one of the things I'm doing with each episode is I finish it off with kind of 10 rapid fire questions. Okay. Just kind of a little personality from everybody. And kind of like on the old Inside the Actors Studio. He always asks them. So the first one is the craziest coach moment you've experienced, either coaching or playing, the good old Mike Keenan throwing the sticks on the ice type of moment.
Oh man. I'm trying to think of some good ones. I mean, there's definitely been, I think one of the craziest things I've seen and like learned about it is as a Bantam, the classic, like push over the Gatorade cooler, like, break a stick, throw some stuff, break the board, all that. And then you see the coach walk out and you're like, I don't even want to talk to that coach for, the next week. Yeah. And then the assistant comes in and like kind of picks up the pieces and like, all right, I'm going to stick by this guy forever. And now being a coach, you've got to do that. And it's funny because it's way more premeditated than it is like just raw emotion. And so we're talking with Pat Griswold's our head coach, and we were like really slacking. I can't remember which game. It's happened 2 or 3 times, but he's like, all right, I got to go in there and I got to send a message now. It's time to do it. Like we're 4 or 5 games into the season. We're still not where we should be. So he'll go in there and he's like, all right, one of you guys has to pick up the pieces. You figure it out. I'm going in, and then you guys figure it out. And, it's partially spontaneous, but it's definitely premeditated where, the assistant coach has to go in there and pick up the pieces. And, it kind of brings the team together and they can get the message without being too hurt in a way too. So it was funny to see both sides.
It's like that scene from Miracle when he lays into him and then walks out smiling. Think that'll get him going. And
exactly. And that's the whole thing.
Last episode, I was talking to Maria Mountain about a similar experience when I was coaching, where the head coach, he was like, you guys out here, he walks in and kicking garbage cans over and dropping F-bombs, and he comes out, looks at us, starts laughing, he goes, that ought to work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know. It's funny, but it does. You really get the message, and sometimes it takes that kind of tone from the coach to, get the message through.
Yeah. So the next one, I have a feeling I know what the answer may be, but it's still worth asking. What is your favorite all-time goalie mask?
All time, one of my dad's. I think it's got to be Washington, but I do love his Ottawa one for sure.
Yeah, I liked his Washington one. So I'm glad you mentioned his mask, because one of the things he's known with his mask isn't so much the artwork as it is the cage.
Yeah.
How did that come about? Do you even know?
So his first helmet was his Cooper, which also, thanks for this.
Yes.
I got the Cooper hat going.
I did not pick one up. I'm kind of kicking myself.
No,
but I know if I call Landon.
He's got to be able to hook you up.
Yeah, I know. In fact, I'm wearing his Northern Enforcer shirt right now.
I got a shirt and a hat. I was like, I got to do it.
Yeah, I got to do it. I know.
I'm sure he's got a couple saved up, or they'll probably just do it again.
Yeah.
They sold them all out in 5 minutes. I remember I was like, I've seen stuff like with bigger apparel and merchandise and stuff like that. You want to get something and you got to be right in the first minute. I was like, all right, it's a smaller, like there was some like buzz about it and stuff like that too. Nope. Like within 5 minutes, it was all gone, and I couldn't get a sweatshirt and like all that stuff too. So it was pretty cool.
I know they have a couple at the Minnesotan, which is right down the road from my house. And I know Corey. So if I called him and said, hey, you got any, put him to the side, I'll be in, he'll do it for me.
Yeah. So anyway, so he was wearing the old Cooper helmet, the bird cage with the North Stars when he first started playing, because that's what he grew up with. And the bars on there were similar to how his cage ended up being. And so I'm pretty sure he got his mask back from Harrison, and it had like a regular standard cat eye cage, and he didn't like it. Like he didn't like the sight lines and not being able to see in peripherals. And so he goes, can you make me a cage that is similar to the Cooper mask I wore? Same thing like that. And they set up the bars like that, and that's kind of how it started, and he never changed from that.
Yeah. It's funny because I wore the birdcage for the longest time, and it was about a year and a half, 2 years ago, where I switched over to the cat eye, and I absolutely love it, because something with the birdcage was just always felt like there was a bar.
The bar is right there.
But that Beaupre cage, it just I'm surprised we don't see it more, especially at the youth levels, because it is.
So it is illegal. You can't wear it in high school, and there are goalies who do wear it. And kind of the gray line area of like, should we just tell the ref that they've got an illegal cage or let them go? I mean, it's basically a standard cage, but the bars around your eyes are
bigger.
Up. You can see, and then the middle bars are pushed together a little bit more.
Yep.
And so there's some people who do it with, like, in the cat eye, they're sealed together.
Yeah.
And on my dad's, it was just a little bit of separation, like a half an inch. And so it's a little squared up. So there is space for pucks to get in there, but it's close enough where it looks normal. So a lot of guys can get away with wearing it in places you're not supposed to.
I'm actually surprised we don't see it more at
definitely
at the different levels, because that was my biggest gripe with the bird cage, is there always just seemed to be a bar right in the sight line.
And that was the fix, was that you just move it up just a little bit. I remember wearing the old ones too, where it was like some goalies would wear them super high so they could look underneath the bar, and some over the top. And I get it. You want it right there for protection for your eyes, but you can't see anything,
it's interesting that you said he worked with Greg Harrison, because I'm trying to work with him to get him on the podcast. But it's working through the technology side of it with him.
Definitely. I mean, he painted so many iconic masks. And I remember my dad told me about the process, and it was literally, he showed up and met with him, and they did the whole cast on his face and the mold and built it. And then he had the mold and could make him anytime and send him out. And I mean, I think all my dad's paint jobs on his masks were great. I mean, and they're simple, but they got good color balance from a distance. And like, that was the thing when we designed his outdoor game mask for the North Stars, that's what we focused on. Is we want to have, a big design on the side that you can see.
Yep.
If you're sitting up in the top deck at TCF, you can see that, hey, it's a star on the side, or the big green space. But inside were all like the things like, he had himself and Malash and all the
Yep.
goalies on there. And then we added a bunch of little details. He had the skyline, the Minneapolis and St. Paul
Yeah.
skyline represent Twin Cities. He had all the names of the past North Stars goalies on the mask, like a bunch of little details. When you look up close, it really tells the story. So
What did he do with that mask after the game? Is it sitting in the den at home, or?
it is? Yep. So he's got a collection of all his masks. And at our old house, we had the mantle and all that stuff too. And we
Yeah.
had some bookshelves that were built in, and he had all of them up there. It's kind of like, actually, in here in my office here, I've got kind of a similar
Okay.
setup with all my
Yep.
old stuff there too. But yeah, he's kept them all, and he's got it there. And I remember I got a mask done, and I had to borrow it for a little bit, and I took one right off the cage and into the cage, so I had to get him a new one so it looked good when he hung it up again. But yeah, it was, and that was just a regular, I think a 950 or a 960 that we got painted up. But we spent, just like the gear and stuff like that too, we spent some time on it. And I think it kind of overall, that whole process like went into how much effort and dedication we had to like putting it all together, wrapped up into a good product at the end. He, again,
Absolutely.
like I said, played great, and he felt good and had a good time. So
Who painted that mask? Out of curiosity.
Gilby Designs in Burnsville. So we wanted to work with somebody local, and
Yep.
I can't remember if he reached out or I reached out to him. I think we saw something, and we put it together, and we sat with him, did some emailing, over designs, and we sat with him one night, and kind of went over the final look, and then he painted it. We picked it up. I got to find the picture. It feels like it was just yesterday. It was a great time, and he did a great job on it. And just seeing the picture now, I can't remember who took it, but I was looking and I was like, God, this reminds me of a photo from like 2002 or something like that. Like just cause we're standing in his house, and like, you don't see that very often. Like now you'll see the mask painter like in the locker room, and they got the professional camera and all that stuff too. So it was special for sure. He was happy that he did it with somebody local and all that stuff too. And now Gilby's cranking out masks left and right. He's done a ton of stuff, and he does great work. And I think he's at a good price for a lot of youth goalies and stuff like that to get something cool. I remember getting my first painted mask too and being like, this is incredible. Like I'm so excited. So
absolutely. When I replaced my mask that I wore from college for years, like the first thoughts I had as I was driving home from the Bauer store was, when I decide to pull the trigger, I wonder what I'll get on there.
Are you like me where you just can't decide on anything permanent? Like I could never get like a tattoo or like even get my mask paint. Like what do I want on there? I want it to have so many things, and that's how I am.
I think I can commit, but I don't have the artistic vision to really bring it together. Because the two painted masks I've had were from high school and college. So I would almost like to have, the high school,
the half and half
on the one side, and the college. But my high school colors are maroon and orange, and my college colors are red, white, and blue.
Yeah.
It's like how
do you make that?
How do you make that mix? Like I've got some ideas with really a good artist that has a flair for that.
I've learned is that you give the artist some ideas and let them go. That's their job, is to be creative. And I think the masks I've been happiest with are the ones that I just let the guy go and say, hey, here's what I need. Here's our team mascot. Here's the colors. Do something cool. I want something, textured or whatever. And that's it. And let them run with it. And the more you get into it, the more because you're never gonna have the same vision as the person. But that's my best advice looking for a mask.
So it's like I have the concept, I just don't know visually how could they make it come together. And like I've got other ideas that those small details that when you're up close you see them, like some of those small details I love that worked stuff in there for personal reasons. I would like to have those on there too. So it's just like, how do I articulate that to somebody who is creative to come up with something killer? Because some of these paint jobs, the crazy detailed ones that Dave Art puts out are awesome, but still like the mask of the 80s and 90s that were so simple and
still told the story and still represented things. And
your dad's Washington mask is a great example. It's like you look at thing, it's one of the iconic Washington masks.
and I love that he stuck with the theme of it too. I mean, he had the Capitol building on it there, and
Yeah.
then in Ottawa, same idea, and then
Yeah.
and it just adds that hometown or the team flair, the city flair. So
Yeah.
I think it was a good balance of that.
And how crazy that he played in both countries' capitals.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's crazy.
So he's able to put the Capitol buildings on both
Yeah.
masks.
One of his things always was, I'm never putting the logo on there directly because it's not the jersey anymore. He was like always like everything but that. And so I think that's kind of how it helped. It's like more of like a supplemental piece instead of like this is a Washington Capitals mask.
Yeah.
It's like it goes with the uniform kind of an idea.
That's an interesting take on that. I like that.
Yeah.
Like everybody knows, and if done right, they'll be able to tell anyway.
Exactly.
Guys like Felix Potvin and Eddie Belfour, you always knew what team they played for.
Exactly.
Based on the colors.
Yeah.
So on to the next one. We spent a little bit of time on the mask.
Which stuff.
As goalie gear nerds, I think we could do quite a bit of that. We may just have to get together for beers since we're both local and do that. Your favorite rink that you've played at? It could be a big place, a small place. We all kind of have that one where we're like, yeah, this is.
That's a good question. I love playing at Braemar. I played at Edina, so I like playing in front of the crowd there is unbelievable. I mean, it's just it's a horseshoe technically, but people stand along the end, and that's great. It was cool to play at it was Bud Gardens now, or it was the John Labatt Center then, but now it's Bud Gardens in London, Ontario.
Okay.
So and tried out for that team for the Knights up there. And that rink was super cool. Like even in tryout, like camp stuff, there were still fans everywhere, and it was fun. I mean, that was probably like the highest. Besides, I mean, obviously practicing with NHL guys, but like as I had played, that was like the fastest pace I had played, and that team was good that year too. And I'm not surprised I didn't make that team. So, but that was an awesome rink too. I mean, it was cool to see a little bit of something different in Canadian junior hockey, and they've got the best rinks and the best attendance and all that stuff in the league by far. But it was cool to see how everybody kind of gravitates toward that team in the city where, you got the Leafs close by and all that stuff too. So, and they really dominated. I mean, you'd see night stuff everywhere you went.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. In Braemar, I've been in there. It's a great little rink. In fact, last year, my boy was playing in the Dyna baseball tournament and Braemar's right there. And
at the fields next door.
Yeah. And one of my college teammates, Ryan S., he runs Devonair goaltending.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They had camp going on at the time, so I just popped my head in there between games to say hi, and that was my first time inside there. And it's like, this is a cool barn, and
that West rink's a classic for sure.
Could only imagine the atmosphere during an Edina Jefferson
Minnetonka
game in the
Prairie,
90s.
It's packed. Yeah, exactly. So
or even the Butte League, which you've got to skate in a little bit. I know they.
I never ended up in the Beauty League. I think I had talked with a couple because I knew some of the guys who were like coaching and playing in it, and I was like, if you ever need a guy, I'm a trained emergency goalie.
So you're the Butte League backup.
Yeah, I guess so. Technically, unused, but if it ever came.
Oh, funny. So your favorite stick that you've used in your playing days?
Oh, that's easy. So I had this old, I think it was a Squirt or a Pewee, and it's funny how gear kind of sticks with you, but it was this old CCM, and I can't remember what the brand. I mean, I was a Squirt, I think, but it was the silver one with black, the old school CCM and the blocks on it, and I felt like it was so light, and I used it as long as I could.
So is that a foam core stick?
No, I think it was a wood stick. I mean, it was okay. Maybe it was one of like the first foam cores, and that's why I thought it was so light. But I love that stick, and I think, and that's like one I like from my memory that I was like, this is my favorite stick I've ever had.
Yeah.
Now I use Dubnyk sticks, and he had another half-inch this year, which is too big for me, or it feels a little bit. But he had a really small stick 2 years ago that I really liked, and they're the Bauer Vapor sticks. It was like the 1X, not the 2X, but I mean they're light, they're snappy. I love the curve he's got on there, and like puck handling with it's awesome. I've gotten pucks that come into the zone and I can snap them back. I've shot them out over the end boards on the other end. Like, it's crazy.
I haven't gone the composite route. One, because they're expensive for a beer leaguer, but two, my first stick I bought was a Titan, and
Yep.
my goalie coach called it a log. He said it was the heaviest stick. So I'm just used to heavy sticks.
Yeah.
I used Christian sticks for the longest times, and they were notorious for being like the heaviest goalie sticks on the
Yep.
market. So I've picked up some of these composites, and to me, it's like it's almost too late. I feel like I don't have anything in my hand.
Exactly. Yeah.
I
It feels like
need a
it's gonna
little bit of
blow
weight,
puck's gonna
so
blow through.
I still seek out the foam cores where available. So I'm using a Warrior right now,
Yep.
and I like it. But I've used Bauer, I've used CCM, Coho, all of them.
I remember I think it was either in the first or second year that I was practicing with the Wild and doing the emergency goalie thing. I went out and I had a slightly broken stick, and then like the first shot of practice, it broke. So I went back to the bench, grabbed my other one, and it wasn't broken. And then next thing, I can't remember who shot it, but they shot it and it just blew the shaft off the top. And I was like, I don't have any sticks. Do you guys got any, who's got extras in here? And they had just traded Kemper. So I guess if I could remember that timeline, but they had a bunch of his old Warrior sticks there.
Yeah.
And Kemper is not a small guy. And he used a long stick, and it was like a 26-inch paddle or 27-inch paddle Warrior foam core. And
that's what I use.
Composites, and it was so heavy. And I had to tape it up really quick on the bench to get back out there. And my arm was so sore. And I think it must have been when I think Doobie was hurt for a little bit or something like that. And I was out there, he was taking the day off, but he was at the rink. And I was talking to him after, and he goes, your arm looks so dead, your blocker hand from holding that stick. He goes, I don't know how Darcy ever used any of those sticks. Like, he was laughing, and I remember my arm was so just picking it up to make a blocker save. And that kind of goes back in like the whole practicing thing. Like, when you don't practice regularly, you're not used to 200, 300 shots in an hour. I'm used to 30 shots in a beer league game, and really like 20 minutes of actually playing. So I mean, it was exhausting. And then on top of that, I used that super heavy Warrior stick that I just wasn't used to, and it was too big. And but it was funny.
That's knocking over my microphone here. That is funny. What's your favorite youth hockey memory?
You know what? My dad and I talk about all the time, and what the best part of youth hockey is when you're playing mites at Edina. I mean, there's a lot of kids in the program, but you get put on teams, and so it's just like playing against all your buddies. And like like out on the ponds, like, because they had so many teams, we'd go skate outside and we'd do little tournaments or whatever. But you're playing against, we're playing so and so's team today. We're playing Nick's team, or we're playing whoever's team today. And that's what you kind of got up for. Even in peewees and stuff like that, when you'd play the other, like, I played a lot of, I went B1A all the time, and because we didn't have double A then. And so playing the other, B1 team was always, exciting, because it was like, these are the two even teams. Well, let's see who's really better. So definitely that, for sure. I mean, that's playing against your friends, I think, is so much more fun than, playing against guys you didn't know. And I guess playing AAA hockey, eventually, you start to meet other people and, from other cities, and then you play against their teams too. And I mean, those games were always awesome too. And after, I mean, you see it a lot more now with high school kids, because they are playing, inter squad stuff in the summer and in different clinics together. But after the game, you battle with your buddies, and then you get off, and you finish the game, you go, great game, whatever, who won, who lost, you couldn't even tell from the handshakes after the game.
Absolutely.
So I think that's always the best.
Absolutely. So this is one that makes people laugh at times. What is your favorite chirp you've heard on the ice?
Oh man. There have definitely been some good ones. I think, I don't know. It's funny we get chirped by a lot of teams for my Tuesday night team that doesn't have any D1 guys, and like, oh, you guys are sandbagging it or whatever. It's like, and we're playing against teams that have guys who are wearing like D3 stuff and, and get stuff. But, God, who's the team? We were playing one of the teams, and everybody had like the turn stuff. And they all had like, old like Avalanche, like return pants or Dallas Stars gear or whatever to like match their team jerseys or whatever. And I think one of our guys like called them Team Gift Shop or whatever. And it's like, you guys went around the league and tried to pick up, went to the gift shop to pick up all their gear, because there's no way they actually played for any of those teams. So it was pretty funny.
By asking this question, the consensus is coming. The best chirps aren't necessarily ones that are ripping on a person with vulgarity. It's just the like out of left field. It
Exactly.
almost makes no sense to where it makes it funny.
But yeah, and there's no response.
Yeah.
That's when you know you really got a guy, when he doesn't know what to say.
Yeah. And they're
They
just
just
like,
get the F you or whatever after. It's like, all right, yep,
yeah,
got
yeah,
nothing for that one.
yeah,
So
exactly. So, next question, only a few left here. Worst post game beer you've had?
um I think so last season I got really sick and I was having like some stomach problems or something like that. And we only had a few guys that were going to go to the game, and it was over at Parade, and I only lived like 5 minutes from Parade. And so I went to go play. I was like, you know what, I'll play. We beat these guys like 15 or 16-2 last time. And I went in and I was feeling awful. Like I've never felt so bad. And it's one of those things too. And I think a lot of guys think this too, but whenever you're on the ice and you get your gear on, I never feel like I have to go to the bathroom at all.
Right. Yep.
And I was like really sick before this. And I went out there and played, and I never really felt bad. Like my body was weak and like I was tired and stuff like that too. And like I didn't want to go down at all or whatever, but I never felt like I had to get off the ice at all, which was good. But we ended up playing the game. I think we won like 15-10 or something like that. I just like stood there and just like sat down. And our team did the same thing. Like they were just kind of messing around, and they knew we kind of had it in the bag a little bit. But after that beer, after I took a sip of it, and I was like, nope, I don't want any part of this. This is not for me right now.
Yep.
So yeah, it didn't matter. I don't even know what kind of beer it was, but my stomach was not having it.
Yeah. I knowing that it was going to be our first game back in a while, I sent the text out to the team saying, I know we're out of practice, but who's bringing the beer?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the guys said, yeah, I'll bring it. And then he had a bunch of Busch Light in the bag. Now, he had other beer too, but I looked at him and said, I thought you said you were bringing beer. Come on now.
So everybody brings their own water to this.
Yeah, and he goes, I got it free, so I'm just trying
Yeah.
to get rid of it so I don't have to drink it. And I go, okay, that's fair. So when you tape a stick, heel to toe or toe to heel?
I am toe to heel, and then I am one loop of tape at the finger on the paddle, and then one above where my hand goes. And then my dad and he showed it to me as a kid, and I've always done it since, is the kind of the candy cane through the handle at the top with a rounder knob on the top. I mean, Hopi does like the full roll of tape up top. Dubnik's got like nothing on there. It's like a tiny little, just one section of tape that goes around like, maybe 20, 30 times. Those guys use like the grip tape all over the handle too.
Yeah.
Hate that. It gets all over my glove. Don't like it. Take that off pretty quick. But pretty simple overall. I mean, I try not to tape up too many sticks. I hope I don't break too many during the year. But
so you're one of the few goalies I've talked to that does toe to heel.
And I start from behind, and then you run it back because then when I take the puck after and I smooth it all out so it doesn't break so easy, and you get the wax on there a little bit. It runs down the stick, so when you're shooting pucks, it's not going against the grain.
Okay,
so that's why I do it.
All right, so there's reasoning to it.
Exactly. Yeah, I like to think
you're the first one that I've talked to that does toe to heel, that does it for a specific reason that makes sense.
Yeah.
Not, well, that's what I do.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of guys are like that. It's just how I've done it, and that's what's comfortable. I mean, it could be something as small as tape, but a lot of times it comes to something as big as how you strap up your gear and stuff like that too. So
yeah, and it's interesting you talk about the grip at the top, because I did that for years, and I had a knob about yay big, and then the butt end Century grip came out, and I was looking at it, and I was like, that knob is the same exact size as what I put on my stick, and the length of it was as far down as I went with my grip. The only difference is it didn't have that the candy cane grip part. But I tried it out, and because of the material it's made out of, it.
And you liked it.
Yeah, it's perfect for me, and
I think for me, I need something that's a little smooth, because like whenever I slide my hand up on it, it would get caught kind of where it starts on the rubbery part.
Okay.
And so my tape there is like one little thin layer. Like any more than that, and I'm getting caught, because I play the puck all the time. And the stick comes out and stuff like that too. So it's got to be really seamless for me to get right up into that.
I wonder if you put one thing of tape around that bottom to smooth it out would work.
I used to do a little bit of electrical tape on the end so it wouldn't fray up, but now as long as I use a puck and get it all stuck down, it works. But yeah, I think a little bit of electrical tape or something like that could seam it up. So
yeah, but I'm liking those butt end grips for my
Mhm.
sticks,
Yeah,
just
and they're
because,
light too. It's lighter
yeah,
than just putting 30 rolls of tape on it.
exactly.
Some guys go through like 3 rolls of tape in one stick, and I'm like,
Well,
you just added like 3 pounds to that thing.
well, and just going around and around and around on the butt
Hmm.
end, it's like, come on,
Yeah, tape isn't cheap. No,
No,
it can be,
exactly.
but
Yeah.
you got to buy them in
Um,
rolls of 30.
the your favorite number to wear when skating?
So I definitely always tried to wear 33 like my dad wore,
Yeah.
and not that I was like, oh, this is my number, whatever. It was just like, all right, here's a number, let's stick with it. We're
Yeah.
going with it.
Well, it's
Um,
almost the family number too. I know,
yeah,
and
exactly. My sister wore it, tried to wear it, and all that stuff too. So,
yeah, I know in our family for other sports, my brother-in-law wore 15. So like
mhm,
a lot of the nieces and nephews have
we'll all
gone
wear
with
15.
15.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, 33 has always kind of been our lucky family
yeah.
number. I mean, it's a lot of weird things. Like my dad went to Vegas for some golf deal or whatever, and they had a hole that was like the island hole, and they had a hole in one contest on there, and it was, I don't know if it was like 100 yards or something like that, whatever. But everybody got into the raffle, and everybody hits the balls, and then they got to go collect them at the end. So everybody's got a different number that's assigned, and he got ball 33, and he was joking with his business partner at the time. It's like, hey, I got it. I'm going to win. And sure enough, hits it right in, puts it right. I think he put it right next to the hole. I don't think anybody made one, but he put it right next to the hole and won like a whole new set of clubs and
Oh, nice.
all this stuff too. And he was like, I got it. So, and we played in a golf tournament. I think it was maybe 2-3 years ago in the summer. We played in a charity golf tournament, and we got in cart number 33, and we go, here it is. We're going to win. And sure enough, there it was. It's just weird. Like raffle tickets. My address right now has got it in there too. Like it's weird. It pops up all over the place. And
Yeah.
yeah, sure. Like it's common to see numbers places and stuff like that, but it's always a good sign when we see it in our family. So
Yeah, that's awesome. And then the last question is probably the one that I think is the most important one I ask. What advice do you have for young goaltenders?
I think it kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier of, you know, it's almost more for parents, but make sure you love it and you get away from it. And when you go to the rink, make sure you want to be going to the rink. I mean, I
Hmm.
think that's the biggest thing for kids, and how to avoid that burnout is, you know, don't overdo it. You don't need to go skate, 8 times a week and be doing all these little things in between. And, a lot of kids get bogged down with just doing skills, and then you're not
Hmm.
playing games, and then it's not fun because it's work all the time. And as a kid, you know, that's what's going to happen. But I think it's, two things, we had talked about is, don't burn out on it. Make sure you love going to the rink and space it out. And two, don't give up on any pucks. I mean, that shows more than anything is tenacity and, desire and passion on the ice more than, you know, technique and skating and who can make the flashiest glove save or whatever. It's
Yeah,
coaches are going to notice you battling for pucks every single play more than they're going to notice one guy who reaches back and makes an incredible stick save or a glove save. So
absolutely. And, I was talking to a couple people about this with COVID, forcing
mhm.
athletes to step away from
Yeah.
every sport for a longer period of time than they probably ever
Mhm.
have might be a blessing in disguise. Because
Exactly, for
one,
sure.
families got to uh, experience each other again. They
Mhm.
got to eat dinner at home and not in the
Yeah,
minivan going through a drive-through.
exactly.
And now these athletes are returning to their respective sports, and they're going, "Well, I can take some time off. I'm
Mhm.
not going to forget how to play the game."
Yeah, mhm.
So it'll be interesting to see moving forward if some of these kids start to, or even parents make the decision, hey, we
We're
can
gonna do it a little
take a
less.
season off.
Yeah.
You can, if you're a hockey player, you can have your summer. Maybe,
Mhm.
maybe instead of sending you to hockey camp, we take a family trip,
Yeah,
stuff like
exactly,
that. Um, it'll be interesting to see how it goes, but
Yeah, definitely. I think it's definitely opened a lot of eyes for sure as to, whether it's, in business or in sports or school even,
yeah,
how much you being there and, being able to take a break, is beneficial. So
yeah, yeah. Well, Connor, I've taken up a ton of your time.
no problem. This is great.
Seems like we've only been talking for
I,
5 minutes. So
agree. Yeah.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you being on the podcast, and
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for having me. We'll have to go grab a beer and keep chatting. So
I'm down for it.
sounds good.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I think Connor and I could have kept talking all day. I think we talked close for an hour after we finished recording. Be sure to follow him on social media. You can find him on Twitter at YoungBopes or Connor Beaupre 33 on Instagram. Don't worry, I'll have links to his social profiles in the show notes. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Simply search for Washed Up Goalie and I'll pop up. Visit washedupgoalie.com for some great hockey-related content, beer league hockey videos, highlights, and all podcast episodes. I need to give a big thank you to the band The Zambonis for allowing me to use their music on my podcast. You can download their music at iTunes and listen to them wherever you stream music from. I'm working on lining up other goalies as well for future episodes. If you are a goalie or have connections to a goalie who I should talk to, shoot me an email at washedupgoalie39@gmail.com or send me a DM on social media. Also, if you're a brand that wants to sponsor the show, be sure to reach out to me. I'll be happy to talk and we can work something out. And finally, if you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe, rate, and comment on the podcast platform you're listening on. It's a quick action on your part that helps others find Tendy Talk. Until next time, keep your stick on the ice and your body square to the puck.
Slapshot man.